We are going to call this special meeting of the Martin County School Board to order. Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Mrs. Falls, will you please call the roll?
Mr. DiTerlizzi.
Here.
Mrs. Roberts.
Here.
Mrs. Pritchett.
Here.
Mrs. Russell.
Here. Please let the record show that Marcia Powers was not able to make it today. Okay, do I have a motion to approve the agenda?
I'll second.
Thanks. I have a motion by Ms. Pritchett and a second by Ms. Roberts. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Okay, Superintendent Maine?
Yes, Madam Chair. The purpose of today's meeting is for the board to adopt the tentative millage rates and budget for the 24-25 fiscal year after receiving public input. Trim or truth in millage advertisements have been placed according to the specifications of the law. Trim requires that the first issue we discuss at the public hearing is for the proposed millage rates for the fiscal year. By law, the budget is required to be adopted after the adoption of the millage rates and after public input. Madam Chair, I will ask Mr. Morrison to review the 24-25 proposed millage rates, followed by any public input. Then the board will adopt the tentative millage rates contained in the accompanying resolution for 2025-02. I will then ask Mr. Morrison to review the tentative budget, followed by input from the public. Then the board will adopt the tentative budget contained in the accompanying resolution 2025-03. Thank you, Madam Chair.
We will now conduct the public hearing as advertised. The public hearing is now in session. Mr. Maine, are there any written responses to the advertised public hearing to be read at this time?
No, Madam Chair. At this time, I'll turn it over to Mr. Morrison to conduct a discussion of the millage and rollback rates.
Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair, Superintendent, members of the board, and welcome to this afternoon's public hearing on the adoption of the 2024-25 proposed tentative millage rates and budget. So as we customarily do and is required by law, we can do a comparison of the last year's 23-24 adopted millage versus the proposed 24-25 millage. The required local effort for 23-24 was 3.195 mils, and the proposed millage for 24-25 is 3.077 mils, or a decrease of 0.1180 mils. The local board levy, millage levy, discretionary operating remains the same at 0.748. The additional voted millage is reduced to 0.425, as opposed prior year was 0.50, or a decrease of 0.750. And the capital outlay millage is 1.5, which remains the same as last year. So millage to millage comparison, 5.9430 last year versus 5.750 mils this year, a decrease of 0.1930. The 24-25 millage is 3.5% lower than the 23-24 adopted millage. As required by the Florida Department of Revenue and the trim law contained in Florida Statute 200, we have to compare the current proposed rate versus the millage rollback rate. The required local effort rolled back would be 3.0185. And just for those who might be watching, the rollback rate is the millage rate that you would have to apply against this year's tax roll to raise the same amount of money that you raised last year. So the 3.077 mils for the current proposed rate is higher by 0.0585. The board discretionary at 0.748 is 0.0410 higher than the rollback rate. The additional voted millage actually beats the rollback rate at 0.425, beats it by 0.0470, and the capital outlay millage is a little higher at 0.0830. So in comparison to the rollback rate, the proposed rate of 5.75 is 2.41% higher than the rollback rate, hence our requirement under law to advertise a notice of tax increases. As we typically also do, just to try to get a sense of what this means for taxpayers, scenario one assumes no increase in your assessed valuation of your home. On the average, it's about $696,000. Of course, under law, you also receive a $25,000 exemption. For 23-24, taxes paid by this homeowner would be about $3,992.59, and 24-25 taxes would be about $3,862.93, or a tax decrease of $129.66, or 3.25% less. This same scenario can be found on page 13 of your budget books. However, on the average, property values in the Martin County School District have increased about 8.01% in the assessed valuation on the home. So to get to 696, you would have an increase of about $55,000. Your Save Your Home's constitutional amendment caps that at 3%, so you only get taxed on the $19,231 off that increase. So the 23-24 taxes would be about $3,661.07, and for 24-25 would be $3,652.76, or a tax decrease of about $8.32, or 0.23% less. Madam Chair, at this time, it would be appropriate to sound the halls for any public input on the proposed 24-25 tentative budget rates.
Thank you. Mr. Main, have you documented that this public hearing was properly advertised in accordance with state law?
Yes, Madam Chair.
Mr. Main, are there any written responses to the advertised public hearing to be read at this time?
No, we did not receive any written responses.
Thank you. The public is now invited to address the board regarding the proposed 2024-25 millage rates at this time. Is there any individual, organization, or anyone with a personal public interest who wishes to speak? Seeing none, this concludes that the public hearing on July 31st, 2024 has been conducted pursuant to notice and that ample opportunity to address these issues have been provided to all. Is there a motion to approve Resolution 2025-02, tentative millage rates?
Approve. There's a book. Talking about this? No, I'm talking about the resolution. I value.
You can't hear Mrs. Roberts.
Okay, you're. Oh, it's turned off, so it doesn't matter. I speak.
Okay, that's what you're saying, turn it on.
Okay, Ms. Pritchett, you made a motion. So I'll second that motion, thank you.
Thank you. I have a motion by Ms. Pritchett, a second by Ms. Roberts. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Okay. Mr. Morrison?
Thank you again, Madam Chair. At this time, we would like to propose the summary of the 24-25 proposed tentative budget. Board members, in front of you, you have a budget book that details all the proposed budgets for 24-25. We have included on pages 2 and 3 also a highlight of a statewide increases, budgetary process that we did. Just of note, under the budgetary process, that the work began in March of this year, and we will continue to make refinements to the budget and corrections as we need to go along for the final hearing on September 17th. So we still are, again, before what you have is tentative, which we will then also have to refine. But looking at the general operating fund, last year, the beginning budget was $249.5 million. This year, it went up to $253.5 million, as primarily driver of that is the increase in local property taxes. The debt service fund was $15.9 million last year. The current proposed rate, the proposed budget is $15 million, about a decrease of $897,000, which is partially the refunding of the Series 2014A refunding COP. So you see the principal and interest amounts falling. Capital projects, $247.8 million. Tentatively is coming in at $255.8 million, or an $8 million increase. Pretty much some of the projects that were approved in the 22-24 five-year capital plan are now coming online. So those expenditures have hit the budget this year. Food service, last year was $19.26 million, a little bit up to $20 million that they do have a slight increase in their fund balance. Federal funds went from $31.2 million last year to $12.7 million this year, a decrease of roughly $18.5 million, primarily due to the spend down of all of our COVID ARP and ESSER 2 funds over last year. And the enterprise fund pretty much remained status quo at $4.3 million last year, and about the same for this year. So total altogether is $568,269,364 last year, with $556,235 this year, or a decrease of $6,613,128, primarily driven by the decrease in the federal dollars. Madam Chair, I believe at this time it would be appropriate to sound the halls for any public input on the proposed tentative budget.
Thank you, Mr. Morrison. The public is now invited to address the board regarding the proposed 2024-25 tentative budget at this time. Is there any individual, organization, or anyone with a personal public interest who wishes to speak? Seeing none, this concludes that this public hearing on July 31st, 2024 has been conducted pursuant to notice, and that ample opportunity to address their issues has been provided to all. Is there a motion to approve Resolution 2025-03 tentative budget?
Motion to approve.
Second.
I have a motion by Ms. Pritchett, a second by Ms. Roberts. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously. This concludes the first public hearing on the 2024-2025 tentative millage rates and budget. The public hearing is now adjourned. Mr. Morrison, I did want to let you know I am very thankful for all the work that you've done, you and your team. I really appreciate it.
Thank you, Madam Chair. If I may take the opportunity, as you see before you on the screen, to thank the superintendent's executive team and all the staff members, everyone who participated in the development of the 2024-25. I also included millage, because that was very important for us to have those workshops to discuss some of the flexibility that those funds allow us to address some of the mandates that we have coming forward, and the budget presentation. Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Next, we will have open to the public. Do I have anyone that would like to speak? Seeing none, we will move on. That will conclude public comment for today. We will now have open to the board. Ms. Roberts, do you have anything? All right. Mr. Main?
No, ma'am.
Okay. This meeting is now adjourned. Oh, wait. Oh, that's Mr. DiTerlizzi. Are you still there? Mike? Well, since
He's typing.
Mike, can you hear me? Well, I think we will go ahead and adjourn this meeting. No.